into the frame, let me paint the name. Michael Longo, bringing art to the game. Animator, illustrator, vision's insane. Brush strokes, electric, can't contain the flame. Follow the lines, watch the colors collide. Welcome to the canvas, take a creative ride. From the first sketch to the masterpiece vibe, the Longo in the zone, let the art come alive.
Ah, yes. Welcome, art lovers and weary travelers. I know why you're here. For the infamous Roll for Monster, where we use the outcome of dice rolls to determine what monsters do we design for Dungeons & Dragons. Well, find yourself a seat, order yourself an ale, and let us begin. Roll for Monsters. Alright, so first and foremost, the most important one, we're going to roll for the creature type. And it's a 4. That's a construct creature. Very nice. Next up, we have the size. And we're rolling a 3. That's a medium creature, so a medium construct so far. Now our alignment, let's see. That's a 5. Now that's a mischievous construct. This is getting interesting. Alright, now for some extra features. And it's a 6, plant-like growth. Alright, well this just got more complicated. Alright, so I wanted to avoid the typical just rusted metal with moss growing on it, because I felt like that was... Like, that's where everyone's head always goes to when you think, like, a construct, something robotic, that is just going to be either covered or in plant-like growth and, like, weeds and moss. But I didn't want to go in that direction. I wanted to get a little bit more creative. So I thought, this is a mischievous creature, right? So let it be a plant itself that takes on armor like its own suit and becomes a construct. And, you know, why not have it sort of steal adventurers' armor if left unattended? So I thought, that's a great idea, let's run with it, and I give you the armor vine. So what I'm drawing now is simply a sort of a mask they kind of take on themselves, to kind of insinuate the mischievous part of them. Obviously, this is a smiling sort of like those classic, you know, art masks. A lot of inspiration just from like the smiling and sad face of theater. Of course, if you look closely at the mask, I made it so that it could turn around to a sad face if need be. So the plant itself can sort of express its emotions. Now for this plant, it's the way it works. It is sort of like a vine-like creature that slithers on the ground, and as it's kind of moving around, it's looking for unattended armor. So when adventurers would take off their armor for a night's sleep or just to rest, there's now with this creature, you kind of have to keep an eye out that your armor does not get taken over by this troublemaker, this pest, this weed, essentially. They'll climb into your suit, and the creature itself tends to form itself to the shape of the suit, kind of wrapping around it until it becomes a construct. And its main priority after that is to just create as much chaos as possible. So, you know, it won't necessarily attack you or other monsters or it comes across unless it's attacked itself. Its main priority is like a siege weapon. It's there to just destroy, take down buildings, etc. And if you get in its way, it will fight back. Yeah, so just kind of doing some armor, then I'm going to have the plant kind of wrapping around the armor just to show that it's controlling it in some way, like a puppet. And then I thought I don't want this plant to look like any other vine. I want adventurers to be able to kind of spot it with a decent, decent roll of, just perspective check. And so I decided to put, a series of leaves, and as well as I'm going to put maybe some lines, some like almost tiger stripes along the vines, just to kind of make it that, this creature is easy to spot when it's in its vine form, and therefore, it's easy to avoid it climbing into your suit if you just pay attention, but that kind of requires adventurers to have to pay attention, because the second that they're not, your armor is now, you're fighting against your own armor, essentially. And for some, lore or behavior, so to speak, the armor vine, there's been some history of it growing close to battlefields where it would easily find armor of fallen soldiers and such. And folks say that this plant-like creature has been created by the gods to kind of retake the earth after human life, other life is gone, and it's just the earth itself. They will then siege all the ruins and return everything back to nature. And that's kind of the history or the lore of them that I guess people would tell amongst each other, is to kind of insinuate fear for these creatures, and to really, put it in people's heads and adventurers' heads to really watch your armor when you take it off at night or to take a rest. So I'm kind of putting in some details here. Obviously, it's a construct. It's supposed to look like there's no like organic anything other than the plant itself. So obviously, this is somewhat robotic, and now we're going to clean up. So I'm kind of just really focusing for the mask. I really want it to be like almost tribal. These things kind of carry the mask with them. Obviously, they're not just creating these masks every time they take over a suit of armor. This is a mask that moves with it. Or it can be something that the plant itself does almost naturally, much like other, flora and fauna of nature. They do things naturally in their existence that, it comes subconsciously. It could whittle, let's say it whittles this mask once it takes over a suit of armor. Even out of a gourd, it looks like it would come out of a gourd. So, and I think that's, it still plays along the natural theme of it. And there's the tiger stripes I was talking about. So, like, as you can see, like this plant, if you saw it slithering along the ground, you wouldn't mistake it for anything else other than what it is. Right? So now we're going to kind of put the vines wrapping around the hand to just show that this is what's kind of pushing and pulling all the pieces. It's the plant itself. There's no muscles or any blood or anything. There's nothing inside the armor itself other than the plant moving it. Like a puppet, like puppet strings. And we added some details in the glove. Try to make it pretty robotic. And we can have this creature also take on the features of the armor itself. So if it's a magical type armor, then watch out, because now this creature has all the abilities the armor itself has, which makes it more of a threat for higher level adventurers who have some pretty decked out gear that they're wearing, and all of a sudden becomes a weapon against them. I think that's an interesting concept for a lot of stories you can tell. It could just be something your adventurers look out for, because they're camping outside at night, and they got to take off their armor to have a good night's sleep, and they got to someone's got to keep up, or someone's got to stay up, or they got to find a way to protect their armor from getting consumed by this plant. All right. Just putting some vines wrapping around the leg, just to show that, once again, the construct itself is hollow. It is the vines that are manipulating it. You don't want your adventurers to, get confused and assume that there is, someone they can communicate with within this armor. And as this thing is charging into town, ready to siege every building it comes across, they're trying to communicate and reason with it, And it has some hanging vines, sort of. It gave me a cool The Thing, Creature of the Black Lagoon type of feel, just nature kind of consuming modern tech sort of feel, We got some crossing vines just for to look cool, I thought, it would be open at the knees or the joints, where I can show that the vines are actually inside, kind of moving this construct. And this thing they're typically medium height, considering the height of the armor, but it can grow into its armor. So if giant's armor is not immune to being taken over by this creature. It will grow to the size of the armor. All right. And this creature is mischievous by nature, so obviously it's going to do things like pretend it's a statue, or just stand still to avoid being identified until it's too late, and down comes the mayor's mansion or something like that. And obviously, it's going to have two moving speeds. One is going to be when it's in its plant form, which would be a lot slower, and then much faster would be when it's wearing armor, and then that would obviously depend on the armor itself as well, and its weight. I can see this thing, because its alignment is mischievous, means it's not there to destroy lives. It's not trying to hurt people. It's just it naturally wants to just destroy constructs, buildings, homes, anything in its way, carriages. It just wants to plow through it like a playful child. I'm sure, one could assume that a plant doesn't necessarily have that high of an intellect. In fact, I believe it'd probably have quite a small intellect, because it's just a child that wants to just run through and destroy all the toys it sees because it's fun, right? It's a play. The world's a playground to it, and it just needs a cool suit to do it, right? So it could even take on childlike behavior and play with children in a village. It wouldn't even attack adults unless attacked itself, right? So because it just has a mischievous alignment. So it would try and avoid adults, like I said, try hiding from them, pretending it's a statue, ducking in the trees. And then for children, it would, play peekaboo sort of thing, just be childlike in itself until it sees, oh, there's a building and I want to knock it over. I want to destroy it. I want to plow through it with this armor. And it's like fish, salmon, swimming upstream. They can't really explain why. They want to do it. So this creature can't really explain why it wants to destroy everything in its path. It just wants to. It's fun. It's they have that itch that they have to do it. And now we're adding some color. Admittedly, this probably is my least favorite part, like just coloring something in. It's more the tedious part. My favorite part is obviously the design part, which is the beginning. And then obviously the details when you make, I'm going to make the armor look, the top part look, leathery, and then the metal gauntlets rusted. That type of stuff is fun. It's playful experimentation. Filling in color is just coloring. It's the best way to say it. It's literally just coloring, and obviously you have to stay within the lines, but you can always erase if you don't. So it's just a step that has to be done, right? So I do it. The cleanup even is, I guess it would be my second least favorite, because it is also just outlining. And I'm not the greatest at it. I feel like I don't stray very far off of my usual, line weight, line thickness type of, or even just texture. I really should experiment more, like and follow, because, one day in the future you'll probably see me experiment with different styles of art, and you'll watch me mess up just as well as you'll watch me succeed. And it's part of art, is you're gonna mess up a lot. If I could show you hundreds of just garbage drawings that I've done and given up on just because it just didn't come out right, I didn't like it, I messed up. It's trash, but it's a process, and you got to respect the process. All right, so we're filling in the armor now. So the shoulder pads I was gonna make them like a hard leather. So I'm gonna first color it in with a lighter gray, lighter brown, to make it look more worn, and then kind of go over it with some texture, a textured brush to make it look worn and more tattered along the edges as well, just because that's how leather kind of wears at folds and cracks and edges. All right, so I pick different types of brushes, and I do something called I call it sort of the add and subtract method. So basically, I use the same brush for the eraser and the paintbrush, and I pick a texture, I pick a color, and then I kind of go in and I add where I need to add, and like I don't have to worry about adding too much at this point, because that's the subtract part of it. Is I'm gonna then go in with the same brush on the eraser, and I'm gonna slowly remove what I don't need. So what I do, like I'll lower the opacity to about I'm gonna say 40%, anywhere between 20 and 40 is a good medium, because you don't want it too dark, because you can always go over it several times to darken areas that you need to, but having a nice light brush lets you kind of control how much of the paint you're, and I'm saying paint like I'm using wet media, but this is all digital. But anyways, kind of using the paint to decide how much of it you want in certain areas, right? So where darker shadows are, I'm gonna layer it on heavier. And then once you've done that, you go to the eraser, same type of brush, and then maybe an even lower opacity. I would say 20 would be like stick it at 20, and then go in and just kind of take away the like call it extra fat. So just parts of the texture you've added that you're like, okay, this is a little too much, because you're gonna hear this from me a lot. Less is more. Less is more. So you don't need just go heavy in texture. Put what you want in, and then kind of take away until it kind of molds itself into what you want it to be. So this is, I'm adding a little bit of gray or just a much darker brown. Well, there you have it, art lovers and weary travelers. Our first episode of Roll for Monster. I hope you really enjoyed the whole process of design. And if you follow me on Patreon and become one of my Patreon subscribers, not only will it be greatly appreciated, but you will also have access to the monster stat block that I created for these monsters. That's an interesting perk. Anyways, like, subscribe, and follow along, because this is going to be fun adventure. Later, guys.